All right, guys, welcome back to the AOC Malta Cyber Series Masters for League of Legends. I'm Alex Magical Voice, joined in again by the Ender L, and we are already getting really quickly into picks and bans, going really fast between the Rift Kings and between Washed Up Kids. So right now, really interesting bans that we've already seen.
Right, the Rengar, Bard, Evelynn, Amumu, all things that don't really get touched all that often. These teams definitely have a clear understanding of the others' champion pools, the comfort picks, because Rengar, Amumu, I mean, even the Sejuani, that's just stuff that is not blatantly overpowered. That just must be something that Brandon is very, very well versed on as the Rift King's jungler.
I'll just say, King Brandon, he's very good on Evelynn. Evelynn's one of his favorite champions and loves playing that one. And Bandicoot actually really loves Rengar top, so I'm not surprised to see that either. Bard also being a really smart pick coming on the side for C9. How do you say that? Aeon?
Aeon, yeah.
Aeon, yeah. So, and then Poppy picked in, really strong pick in general, but the thing that surprised me, now we see Syndra left up completely, not even touched yet.
Right, and Vladimir is also available, so even if washed up kids do pick the Syndra, that's always an option. But I want to touch a bit on the Poppy lock-in as a first pick. We saw the Poppy Kennen matchup last time around, and it actually went strongly in the Poppy's favor. Not that it necessarily should have, but the Rift Kings, they ban away the Kennen, which would be seen as the primary counter pick to the Poppy to make sure they get a fantastic lane matchup up in that top lane. And the Syndra is locked in, as well as the Swain. This is a pick we haven't seen in a long time. That'll be a top lane Swain, and this, I think, is going to have a fantastic time up against Colonel's Poppy.
Now, see, I do want to touch up also why I think the Poppy was first pick. Bandicoot also has been spamming Poppy lately in solo queue. Really knows that champion pretty well, trying to get up to mastery. So now Bandicoot choosing to play Swain into that is kind of trying to almost like what we saw last time, where it was the Kennen trying to bully it out in the lane, but at the same time also Bandicoot's going to know how Poppy works very well and know kind of how to play against that, especially in this Swain. And then also Rift Kings locking in Karma and Caitlyn, two very strong bot laners.
That's kind of the risk you're willing to take, right? When you lock in someone's preferred champion, like in this case stealing away Bandicoot's Poppy, is that he also knows exactly what gives Poppy a tough time because he just plays it so often. And he's definitely feeling comfortable on that Swain to pick that one up after months and months of no competitive play on that whatsoever. It was back in the days when Swain and Vladimir reigned supreme, but he's seen better days. Those old glory days are well into the distant past.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad we don't see that anymore, because
those were terrifying.
Those were terrifying days of where you got a lot of damage dealt to you, but you couldn't do any damage back. So to not have those as prevalent is quite a nice thing. And actually, we see Lucian and Thresh locked in for the bot lane duo of Null, and for we agree it was Eon, right?
Aeon.
I already messed it up.
Yeah.
Aeon.
You should know him. He's Cloud9 support, obviously.
Yes,
he's on the washed up kids. He's playing here at the Masters. But again, the melee sport, I still kind of classify Thresh as a melee. Obviously, a lot more power there. The hooks definitely enable him to go for the all-in plays. So I think it'll fare better than the Braum did in the last matchup. But 3 of the 4 same champions that we saw in that bottom lane in our previous game. And if we learned anything about the Caitlyn Karma duo, is that it shoves early and often and can shred through those turrets virtually untouched, because quite honestly, Lucian can't really get in range to do all the damage because Caitlyn can just keep him from afar with her 90 cal net.
Yeah, and I want to talk really quick on the comp that we see the Rift Kings going for. They locked in Nunu and Vlad. They're going to be a very tanky team, relying on Chucky Y to really be their damage source. He's going to be the one that they rely on for as much damage as possible, with the front line being pretty much everyone else on their team. They're going to send Colonel, they're going to send Brandon, and they're going to send Sad Best just straight into the front line using Karma's Mantra Shield, trying to get them there.
They're very tanky, and yes, they can soak up a ton of the damage that washed up kids are going to be able to pump out. But one thing I'm a little worried about, And I'm always worried about when I do see the Nunu get locked in is that there is little to no engaged potential out of this team. It's
Yep.
really just on the Poppy to make
Yep.
it happen. And yes, the Karma can kind of enable her teammates to run into the fights. But even then, you're still, I mean, at best going to be slowing them down with maybe a Rylai's from Sad Best, and Colonel is the only one going to be able to keep them in place with maybe a keeper's verdict onto 2 or 3 members.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing to really see how they play around this. Sad Best, if he gets a proto belt, will be able to get in there fairly well.
True, but again, doesn't keep them in place, right?
It doesn't keep them in place. They don't have enough hard lockdown CC on their side. So what you might see is a lot more picks trying to come on the other side, and you might see Brandon really trying to counter jungle. But that's going to be hard because Van Cleef has chosen a Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai being a very strong jungler, not very weak when jungling, even in the early levels.
Right, and if he does go for the Tiamat, which is the dominant build on the Rek'Sai, you just clear so quickly, and it would be no surprise to see him stay even or even excel in farming over the Nunu. Nunu is very good at stealing away buffs, but his clear speed isn't necessarily the fastest. Yes, he has that giant consume, which does a ton of damage, but as far as actually getting through those camps quickly, not going to be the greatest. Now, I talked a little bit about how Rift Kings have very limited engage, and I think that's going to play very well into the Washed Up Kids team composition because they too don't have a ton of engage. They want to play back and let Rift Kings come into them with the Swain, the Lucian, the Syndra, who are all very strong champions on their own. But if Rift Kings are trying to come onto them to fight, they're going to be able to knock them back, flay them, drop a box from the Thresh, and really be able to kite around these fights easily. So unless Colonel's able to pick off a priority target in Oxide or maybe Ventus, I don't see these fights going all that well for Rift Kings in the late game.
Yeah, I really agree. It's just going to be so hard with the lack of CC that you really see. I'm sure they have some with the slows, but that's not enough. That's not enough. And you mentioned you're like, oh, they don't have that much engage on the side of Washed Up Kids, but they kind of do. They have a Thresh. They have Scatter the Weak coming out from Oxide, and they even have the Snare coming up from Bandicoot on Swain. That's more than we see on the side of Rift Kings right now. And they can engage as well as disengage a lot better, in my opinion, than Rift Kings just based off team comps alone.
Right. I think it's going to come down a lot to who can, get an advantage here in the early to mid game. Washed Up Kids should win it out by all means. They've got the power picks in the Syndra, the Lucian. Swain should be able to dominate up against Colonel in that top lane. But I say that with a caveat because at some point in this game, Rift Kings are going to get too tanky for Washed Up Kids to deal with. Swain isn't going to do a whole lot of damage in the late game. Yes, he can sustain through it all, but he's not going to do much to the triple tank line from Rift Kings. They're just going to get buffed up by those Mantra E's. As well as Syndra, once she can't burst people down 100-0, once some MR items start coming in on the side of Rift Kings, Oxide is going to start to fall off as well. So there's definitely a time limit on both of these compositions. Rift Kings, they have to survive the early mid-game onslaught of Washed Up Kings and get to a point where they're tanky enough to withstand the damage, withstand the burst.
Yeah, and it's just going to be really hard for Rift Kings right now to even get to that point. They got to survive. And that's a hard thing because you're going to see a lot of mid-game power spikes coming on the side of Washed Up Kings. Swain, once he hits 6, is just a monster. Same with Oxide on that Syndra, who's just going to be an insane amount of damage. And if Aeon hits a good hook, we can see Ventus even starting to go up really well in that mid-game power spike.
Right, those first 1 or 2 items going to be absolutely huge for these two teams. But before we get on into that, we're going to send it over, not to our sponsors, but just a quick little intro to get you guys hyped up for the match. Well, that was fast. We're back into the match.
That was very fast. Now, we are loading up on to Summoner's Rift now. So, Ender, would you like to do the honors again and introduce the first team?
Absolutely. Over on the blue side, it's going to be Rift Kings with King Colonel in the top lane, Brandon at jungle, Sad Best in the mid lane, Chucky on AD carry, and Squad on support. That's a great name, Squad.
Squad. Ooh, right now we see the squads kind of getting up as we see on the red side, we see Washed Up Kings. In the top lane, we have Bandicoot on Swain. In the jungler is Van Cleef on Rek'Sai. The mid laner is Oxide 404 on that Syndra. Null Ventus on Lucian. And C9 Aeon on that Thresh.
Oh, and they are so ready for this. Oh no, Washed Up Kids are backing away. I love early game action, but they're just not going to give it to me. They maybe thought Rift Kings were going to go for an invade of their own. Both teams thought the invade was going to happen. Something was, going a little bit peculiar for both those teams, but neither of them wanting to pull the trigger and go in for the invade.
Yeah, and honestly, that's smart on both sides, because if you're going to go for the invade, you almost have to know that you're safe, and we didn't watch kids. They didn't really know if they were safe. They didn't see any movement at all from the side of Rift Kings, and they didn't act fast enough to be able to go over there, and vice versa for Rift Kings. They weren't sure if they wanted to go out that far and risk losing that early game advantage.
Right, and interestingly enough, we actually see King Brandon starting up on this red buff, actually. It's something that junglers have started doing more often on the likes of maybe an Olaf or the Skarner, stuff like that. But it sometimes can indicate some earlier invades, and he started with the Blood Boil, so he actually gets taken very low and holds on to his smite, so I expect to see some sort of early game shenanigans from Brandon here, maybe going on into the jungle of Van Cleef, but he's so low after clearing away that red buff, holding onto the smite, that he can't really make a play like that.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is Nunu. All he has to do is consume one time, and he's already back to half. Do it one more time, he'll be almost full.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. His team seems to be struggling a little bit right now. Already ran through all of his potions, so we'll see if he fares a little bit better as this game progresses onward. But if we check out this mid lane, we say that Vladimir is a counter pick to the Syndra, which is by all intents and purposes true, but still for this early game, it can be rough for the Vladimir.
Ooh, Chucky got caught out by that hook. Really good hook coming from Aeon on that one, hitting Chucky. Oh, and actually taking a lot of damage back himself, though.
Yeah, the damage trade between AD carry and support, it's an interesting dynamic because trading damage onto an AD carry is almost 100% the right decision because they can only come into lane with one potion, whereas supports come in with triple biscuits. Aeon going to be able to pop one of those and sustain very, very well, whereas Chucky has to be a little bit more conservative. He holds onto his potion, knowing that the Doran's Blade is his primary form of sustain for now, and going to save that potion for a time later in this lane where it's much more important to him.
And that is one important thing to note too, is that even in the early game, Squad on that Karma is going to be doing a lot of damage. Just that's what Karma does. She has her access to her ultimate right away, and is able to just dish out so much more damage than even an AD carry at this stage.
Right, absolutely true. And I really want to track these junglers. We said there was opportunities for Brandon to go for some early game invades, possibly into Van Cleef's jungle. But he does have to be careful if he is going to make plays like that, and needs to keep his top laner Colonel safe up here, because we said Bandicoot was going to have a great time, and he is right now. Chucky once again.
Ooh, Chucky gets hooked right there. The Ignite being used. Heal being popped by Chucky. There's the flash, and Ventus gets the kill. First blood going
So
over
clean.
to Washed Up Kid.
Great play there from Ventus and Aeon. The lantern to get Ventus away from that turret. Fantastic stuff by them. To get the solo kill, or the duo kill, the unaffected kill by the junglers, I guess. You never really know what to call those down in the bottom lane when it's two members getting a solo kill. I don't really know there, but Chucky once again eating those hooks, and he's going to have to return to lane with the cull, which right now isn't going to be that beneficial to him, but eventually he's going to be able to cash in on that Colonel.
Colonel taking a lot of damage. One root coming in. Just one of those Nevermores that can lock him up and make him take so much damage. And I gotta say, Bandicoot's playing this Swain very well.
Yeah, he is. He knows the Poppy. That's one of his favorite champions you were talking about in Champ Select, and he's absolutely dominating through this lane. This is what we expected to happen. The ranged versus melee Kennen versus Poppy matchup last game, but it just ended up not being the case. This time, Bandicoot looks very, very comfortable here on the Swain and doesn't have a CS lead to say of it, but he still is clearly the victor in this early laning phase.
Yeah, and he already forced the TP out of Colonel right now, so if he wants to, there is still the opportunity to make a teleport play on the side of Bandicoot and Washed Up Kids.
Right, and Swain doesn't provide a whole lot in the form of teleport plays across the map, especially early on in the game. Doesn't provide any hard lockdown. Has the never move, which is nice, but it's difficult to land when flashes are available for wherever he wants to go on the map. Is going to just return back into the lane with a Catalyst of the Aeons just to give him the sustain through the lane, which King Colonel wishes he had. That Spectre's Canal doesn't quite have the sustain to match Bandicoot.
Yeah, and Aeon was trying to force out a play on the from Rift Kings right there. We saw Van Cleef, and now we actually see a roam down from Oxide trying to make a play in the bot side, but Aeon's playing this one too carefully at the moment.
Yeah, Washed Up Kids, I like that. Even though it doesn't result in anything, really. Oxide making the move, and now he's going in with Van Cleef, showing some nice jungle mid synergy. We're possibly looking for a pick onto Brandon had they found him, but instead they just, retreat back to mid lane. But again, I love this. They thrive here in this early game. Really good stuff from them, and especially with an Infernal Drake being the first one to appear thanks to the RNG of the Rift. Definitely putting down this early pressure to secure that is beneficial.
Ooh, Chucky taking another hook play, trying to get him back. Chucky taking so much damage. They're not going to go for the dive on this one. They don't have the flash again on Ventus. And Ventus took a little bit of damage from Squad on that one as well.
Yeah, they just love eating those hooks. Chucky needs to be careful there. He already gave up first blood, needs to watch his placement. Aeon with a really nice prediction to throw the hook behind Chucky. Chucky walking straight on into it. Again, just looking to sustain through this lane phase, farm up the Cole gonna cash in later, but for now he is much, much weaker than the serrated Dirk Lucian that he's facing off against.
Exactly, and that's what you kind of expect when you get first blood on your AD carry. You're gonna you get first blooded as an AD carry too. Yeah. Because you're not gonna have nearly the power as your opponent on that one, and you need jungle presence. But the problem is Brandon is on that Nunu. Nunu does not really bring that great jungle presence into gank right now. He's trying to see if he can get a gank right now. There's the monster shield trying to get the movement speed, heal and flash being popped for Aeon on that one to keep him alive.
I mean, it's a successful gank from Brandon, pops 2 summoner spells, but again, the prime target would have likely been that Lucian who burnt the flash, picking up that first blood a little bit earlier on, so just maybe poor communication there. Nevertheless, successful in the summoners that were burnt, but not quite what he had hoped for, trying to get his bottom lane back into the game, down 12 CS, down a kill between 80 carries.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to be hard for now. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to be down too bad at this stage. At least it's not more. But at the same time, you don't want to be down for the whole game, because if you are, that makes it harder to CS. It makes it harder for you to come back, especially when these mid-game power spikes are going to come out.
Here comes Van Cleef.
Ooh, here comes Van Cleef. He's looking for Squad right now. Actually flashed too early to be able to get the flash on Burrow, so Squad was actually able to juke that and get out. Here's the hook landing. There's the ultimate coming onto Squad right now. They're using the calling. He goes down. Aeon picking up the kill, securing that for his team.
Huge pickup there. The side effect of the gank from Brandon is that all of a sudden, Rift King's duo lane, they're shoving on in. So Van Cleef very intelligently makes his way down into this bottom lane. The play was a little bit lackluster there. The flash knock-up with no one around. Maybe the tunnel vision that Rek'Sai so suffers from, but nevertheless, it's yet another kill on to the duo of the washed-up kids down there, as well as an Infernal Drake to buff up a triple carry composition. Yes, Infernal Drake is fantastic in all games, shape, form, but when you have an AP top laner, as well as 2 carries in both the mid lane and the AD carry position, you're going to love the Infernal Drake.
Exactly. I think it's really good on the side of Wash Up Kids on that one. It gives them even more of an advantage. And like I said, they're going to have that level 6 power spike that they're going to have as opposed to the Rift Kings. So it's really going to be hard to see how the Rift Kings managed to come back in this one.
Yeah, similar to the Poppy Kennen matchup. Once again, I continue to compare this, but the Swain and Kennen do very similar things in the lane up against the Poppy. As soon as the Spectre's Cowl comes out, Colonel seems to take relatively no damage, and even though he runs away from the Swain and all his birds flying at his face, Colonel is all of a sudden in a very nice position in this lane, still down in CS, but really out of kill threat from Bandicoot.
Yeah, he doesn't have to worry about that kill threat anymore of Bandicoot. But at the same time, it's a little different than the Kennen matchup because Bandicoot, he's like, oh no, I'm low. I'm just going to pop my Ravenous Flock and I'm good now.
Yep, just sustained through the lane, sustained through the team fights. That's everything that Swain does, very similar to Vladimir in that sense. So come these later game team fights, they're going to take on very, very similar roles. Just sustain on through. Be obnoxious frontliners for whatever.
Van Cleef is looking at the never move, hits on the Colonel right there, flashing out. Van Cleef does not get the Unburrow to follow up the chain CC.
Now, had he had his flash not been burnt in the bottom lane, he may have been able to cash in on something there. But no, I mean, Keeper's Verdict was still up from Colonel, so likely not going to be a kill anyways. And, you know, a flash burnt is a successful gank for any jungler. Oxide's coming down bottom. He's on a ward.
Yeah, he's on a ward. Aeon was hoping to land that hook onto Squad right there, because if he had Oxide throwing down, would have not mattered if he got spotted out by the ward. It was a little too late because he could just chain the CC until Oxide gets there.
Interesting decision, too, from Sadbest. He knew that Oxide roamed bottom, but rather than trying to follow up on that roam from his opposing mid laner, he takes the pressure there, moves up to the top side of the map to force Van Cleef out of that river to get Scuttle Crab control to his own team, and therefore keep Colonel a little bit safer up there, knowing that his top laner had just lost the flash and been made much more vulnerable.
Exactly, so it's gonna be interesting to see how they help Colonel in that top lane, and I would like to see Sadbest actually, now that he's kind of cleared out a little bit of vision, go up there to help the Colonel. But the problem is also, like you said, Colonel doesn't have flash while Bandicoot still does.
Yeah, that, and it's so difficult as the Vladimir to get a shove going against the Syndra. He's got a CS lead, but Oxide continues to shove in. Oh, they continue to try and make plays around this bottom lane. Washed Up Kids, they're not really coming in clutch here. You know, Van Cleef, Oxide, they're both trying to roam down and make plays, but maybe Aeon and Ventus telegraphing it a little bit too much, playing a little bit too far forward.
Now, I want to mention something really quick. Look at Brandon's CS right now. He has just been farming up a storm on that Nunu. And
Colonel's mid.
Colonel's mid right now, and Oxide, he tries using the Unleashed power, but flashes away. The Hemoplague's gonna pick up the kill. Sadbest getting the kill on the Oxide.
You were wondering why Vladimir is the counter pick to Syndra? It's not because he wins early game. It's not because he can have better wave clear early over the Syndra. Hold that thought, Squad!
But Squad might be able to make it out. Flash again coming out of Ventus, but Ventus gets caught up on a trap right there, and Squad barely surviving on that one.
Yeah, both junglers moving down here as well. But it's gonna diffuse the tension there. No fight really gonna break out too much. No kills, at least. But what I was talking about is Sadbest, he can just pull away from the Unleashed power, negate that entire ultimate, which really is the core of Syndra's damage. Able to turn that one around with a kill from a nice roam from Colonel. Really well done from the top laner, who continues to get bullied out in this lane. But if he can find a time where Bandicoot is not in the lane, not continually shoving him in, he can make plays across the map.
And it was definitely a great roam. And we actually even see Sadbest trying, getting ganked right there by Van Cleef, but not actually being taken down at all. And I just want to go on the point. The one thing that I think was a problem with Oxide on that one is he panicked a little. He saw Colonel come down, and he used the Unleashed power, which normally you'd want to wait, especially against Sadbest on that Vladimir, until he cools. That way you know that the damage is going to go through.
Right, that, and you want to flash the heroic charge as soon as it comes out. You can actually flash that ability so it will not knock you back, which may have been the difference maker, the game changer in whether or not he was going to go down or not, but very similar to the last game when that first turret got crushed down bottom, the range versus melee. It's Bandicoot's turn to knock away at that top tower right there. Washed Up Kids, we said they were going to be dominating in this early to mid game. They're up about 800 gold, but it is not nearly as heavily in their favor as perhaps they may have wanted it to be by now.
Yeah, and I will say one of the reasons being is the gangs from Van Cleef have not necessarily been where they want them to. They haven't gotten as many kills as they wanted to pick up. Bandicoot actually getting that first tower gold on that one. Colonel trying to damage him as best as he can, but that's one of the problems with the Swain. And there comes the Keeper's Verdict, trying to hit him up in the air. He's out of mana. He might be able to get Bandicoot, but he flashes away, and he makes it out of that one.
Oh, down bottom, Brandon. I think he's going to be okay. But that's what I was talking about. Oh, Colonel has flash. That's a kill.
Ooh, there he goes. Colonel flashing in, hitting him into the wall with the heroic charge. Bandicoot stayed a little too long.
See, I was just about to say how excellently Bandicoot played, knowing the exact damage of both him and his opponent. But here we go. We might be seeing a fight here. Sabas gets hooked.
Sabas gets hooked right there. He uses the Hemo Plate, get hit onto 2 members right now. Here comes the collapse in. King Brandon once again in range for his ultimate right now, but they might be able to make it out of this one.
Oh, Colonel from the top.
Colonel, though, he's going to get the heroic charge. He hits Ventuson. There comes the ultimate from Brandon. It doesn't help much, except we do see Sadbest getting in there with the ghost, getting the kill on that one onto Ventus, who got himself in a bad spot from the good roam coming in from Colonel.
We won't know which team gets the advantage off of that until we progress a little bit deeper into that game. Yes, it was a kill for Rift Kings. They want the gold to prevent the scaling from Washed Up Kids, but the Mountain Drake, very powerful as well. It's all about how Washed Up Kids can use that to their advantage. Do they bait out a Baron in the next 10 minutes or so? Do they use that to get the turret shoving going, get a couple more towers, extend that gold lead? It's really up to them, because Dragons, they don't give you like gold here in the now. They don't really give you stats right now. It's about how you use them to your advantage. Whereas kills, that just gives you flat gold. Rift Kings, they go back, buy an extra, boots or an extra longsword, which can help in fights. It's just, again, is it the fights that matter, or is it the rotations and the map play that you get from a Mountain Drake?
Now, I want to start off with that whole play, because it all started with Bandicoot taking top tower.
Yeah.
So he takes top tower, he risked a lot of damage to make sure he secures that gold, which is very good because first tower gold is a lot. It really puts you on the map. The problem was then he stayed too long in the top. Ooh, the hook coming in. There goes squad getting taken out by that hook unleash power combination. Really deadly.
Right, and they're going to turn that into a turret. I don't think they're going to look for much more. So continue to elaborate on that point.
So, yeah, like I was saying, it started with that, and then Bandicoot staying it a little too long, which allowed for the... Oh, my... Aeon is so good at hitting Chucky. He has some sort of magnet on his butt to those hooks, and just constantly gets hooked by them.
All right, Magic, it's your turn now. Unless this fight goes
no, Bandicoot right now in the top lane. He's going crazy on Colonel. They're trying to fight this out right now. He does get heroic charge into the wall. Keeper's Verdict hitting him up into the air. Now we see Bandicoot. He wants something, but he is out of mana right now. Here comes Sad Best. He might be able to pick up a kill, help out Colonel right now. Bandicoot trying to see if he can get out. Proto Belt used by Sad Best. The Hemo Flake as well. Are they going to get the slow? No, they're not. And Bandicoot might make it out of this one. He's just going to keep running for the hills.
And what does that buy the rest of his team? You see, there's only 2 members in the middle lane now to stop this shove in from Washed Up Kids. How are they going to use their advantage? Washed Up Kids, they get a turret.
Very smart play coming on the side of Washed Up Kids right there. They see Sad Best went into the top lane from pretty much try to punish the overextension from Bandicoot, but Bandicoot saw that coming, was able to barely get out of there, and then instant rotation mid lane. They get that tower, and that gets them a bigger gold lead than they're more of a gold lead than they were currently having.
Right, it's 3 turrets now to none in the favor of WUK. I think we're just going to stick with Washed Up Kids. That's a little bit easier to say, but they clear away all those outer turrets, and not only does that give them a gold advantage, it gives them a map advantage, a tempo advantage. Now it's their turn to decide where the pressure goes on the map, because they're going to continue to shove in all of these lanes, maybe look to deny some farm away from Brandon, steal away some camps, some buffs, and just put pressure onto the Rift Kings, who are on the back foot for the time being.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we expected. This is that mid-game power spike we were talking about Washed Up Kids having. This is their time to shine. They need to make plays as many times as they can as a team, especially. Use Bandicoot's teleport in the top lane, have him push out that lane, because he can really do that with the Ravenous Flock. He can just activate that. Let's see his item build. He does have that Rod of Ages right now, so he can do that without being punished too much if he so chooses.
Right, but Brandon's looking to punish him.
Yeah, and there's the flash coming into Colonel, hitting the heroic charge. Absolute Zero, trying to see if he can do anything. But look at the heal coming in from Bandicoot right now. He is okay, but Squad's gonna help make sure he doesn't go anywhere. And the kill coming in from Colonel on that Keeper's Verdict.
This time, the washed up kids, because they already took all those outer turrets, they're unable to find anything, so they're not synergizing these shoves as nearly as well as they should be able to. If all 3 lanes or 2 of the lanes are shoving up, hitting turrets at the same time, then if 2 or 3 members from Rift Kings get called into the top lane to deal with Bandicoot, they lose a turret. But because washed up kids, they're a little bit disjointed in the split push pressure, they end up losing a member and gain nothing on the other side.
Yeah, and I gotta say that's good. It's good for the Rift Kings right now, because you see in the top lane, King Colonel, he's trying to put as much damage onto that top tower as he can. Try to get a little bit of the gold back to his team, because right now it's, what, 1.7k gold difference between the 2 teams? That's not very much. You want to have that far more if you're washed up kids, where this is your power spike. If you're not getting the objectives and the advantage now, it's going to get harder and harder as the game progresses.
And the thing is, there's another dragon spawning in 30 seconds, so that's a good time for the washed up kids to find a fight. It gets difficult in around this 20-minute mark once you've already taken those outer turrets, because all of a sudden there's no real objective for you to pressure. So because there's a dragon spawning very, very soon, their hope is that Rift Kings try to fight for it, but because the RNG spawned a Cloud Drake, the Rift Kings, knowing maybe they're a little bit weaker right now, it's up to them whether or not they want to take the chance of fighting over this objective.
Yeah, you really got to decide that, but at the same time, as weird as this might say, Cloud Drake would be very beneficial for them. That out-of-combat movement speed is something they really actually need, because the roams that they have been making all game. They have been trying to constantly roam all over the place, and Brandon really needs that. He needs
they start
as
this
much
Baron
speed.
right now?
Ooh, they're going to try for the cheeky Baron right now. They're using Sad Best to zone away Oxide, but no, they're going to actually fall back right now. They see the whole team coming towards them, and they don't want to get too low. Again, knowing that they're at a disadvantage still.
Yeah, Oxide dropped a blue trinket in the Baron pit, so nice decision from them. But because Rift Kings went for the aggressive Baron, now they're zoned off the middle lane. They lose a tier 2 turret. This is exactly what washed up kids are looking for. Extend this advantage, keep the tempo up, and look for more and more ways to find fights, find objectives, find gold.
Yeah, that was very smart plays coming up from washed up kids on that one. They rotated instantly for that objective, and I think that's a smart idea. You got to make sure that you get all these objectives, and at the same time, they punished the overcommitment of Rift Kings on that one, because Rift Kings, they couldn't do anything on that one. They wanted to get it, but like you said, the blue trinket spotted them out, and if they didn't continue to commit on that one, they end up losing a lot more for it.
Yeah, and what real source of DPS do the Rift Kings have on that Baron anyways? A Caitlyn with a Runons and some swords in her pockets? I don't think so. You're not going to have a good time with
right now, they're looking for Bandicoot, though. Bandicoot, at the same time, he does have the Ravenous Flock. The more people he brings to the fight, the more lifesteal he gets.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like Rift Kings, they have no real hard engage, so even though they have the man advantage, it's a 3 versus 1. If they don't have Colonel to lock down a single target of washed up kids, they can't find a pick. They can't find any sort of engagement, because washed up kids, they can simply walk away, no problem.
Exactly, and that's kind of been their problem, is if they don't have Colonel, they don't get much. And look at that, Colonel has 100% kill participation at the moment because of that reason, that he's literally their hard engage.
Yeah. And he actually was winning out in that lane against Bandicoot. You know, he lost the turret early, but he found a solo kill up there to some overextension from Bandicoot, and now he might be the one a little bit too far from home. Look at this roam from washed up kids.
Yeah, right now we're going to see if Aeon can get that. Keeper's Verdict coming in, trying to see if it can hit on anyone right now. They're trying to juke it. They do juke it right there. The heroic charge, trying to keep himself safe, and actually does, because Oxide doesn't get the damage that they need, and Colonel just walks away.
Oh, that's so funny. Oxide actually backs away, because look at this whole top side of the map. It's dark for washed up kids, and Rift Kings, they hadn't quite shown on any wards down in the bottom side of the map just before that happened. So Oxide was scared that Colonel was maybe running towards his team. He backed up, not wanting to make the risky play of getting caught out without the rest of the team nearby. So they go back, grouping up mid, and Colonel, he's free to shove in the top lane, but there's some key wards behind Washed Up Kids that he could teleport onto and find some sort of a flank initiation.
Yeah, that's definitely what he's going to try doing. He's backing right now, seeing if he can spend some of the gold.
Oh, he's just going to keep shoving.
Oh no, wow, you're right. He's going to keep shoving, see if he can't get any more objectives. Because look at this. The Washed Up Kids have committed to the siege in the mid lane right now, and they're definitely going to lose a lot of damage on that inner tower on the top lane.
It's so early on to be going for an inhibitor turret. I mean, if anything, I would have expected them to be down in the bottom lane, picking up that huge wave, sieging onto the tier 2 bot turret, rather than trying to overextend for that middle lane. We've seen some crazy fights happen around inhibitors for the teams that were up in gold, so Washed Up Kids, they need to play it careful, need to be methodical about how they close this out. But right now, it seems like they're either not taking enough risks, or they're just seemingly lost as to what they need to do next to accelerate the end of this game.
I think they're it more seems like they're lost. They're not sure what they need to do to accelerate this game at this moment. They're trying to figure out what they need to do. And one of the things is they have it going right now. They need Bandicoot in the lane shoving, and they need to send them just to the side lanes, keep shoving him out. And unfortunately, he doesn't have his teleport to really help his team continue that, but they also need to continue to pressure these objectives. They've been getting these dragons. They have 3 of them so far, all 3 of them. And soon they might want to start pressuring for that Baron too if they get enough of them.
Right, I feel like they do have very good Baron bait because they have so much pick potential. The Swain, the Thresh, the Syndra. You can bait this out, get some pink wards, get some sweepers. That's what they're really missing, is a couple of sweepers. They only have the one at this moment in time. They need to start baiting that out, because if they can bait out a Baron and force Rift Kings to come into them, the fights will go very, very well for them. Rather than going to Rift Kings for the fight, force them to come to you.
Exactly, and that's kind of what they need to be doing right now. They're trying to siege on these turrets, and that's not necessarily a bad idea, because it does get them some extra gold if they manage to get them, but at the same time, they kind of lose, like you were saying, they lose that objective pressure that they desperately need, because as we continue to see, the later the game goes, the tankier the Rift Kings are getting, and Colonel, he's just absorbing all this damage right now and just getting killed up to full every time.
Well, it's just so difficult for Rift Kings to actually make a siege happen, because Ventus Lucian is just such a slow range AD carry. He can't get up there to knock away at that tower, and the wave clear is decent enough that Rift Kings don't really have to be worried about losing towers in any sort of siege situation. Washed Up Kids, they're just trying to find a pick here because they know they can't actually siege. Oh,
Colonel wants to go in right now. He got a good amount of damage on Oxide. Sad Best is trying to get in there. He gets a decent hemo flank, but now him and Colonel are caught out. Absolutely zero. Gets fully charged too, but doesn't deal with damage because he's too tanky. Now Bandicoot's taking a lot of damage on that one as well. Ventus trying to see if he can pick anything up, but takes a good amount of damage coming in from Chucky on that one as well. Damage all over the place, but no kills for either team.
That's kind of the fight we would have expected to see. I mean, Rift Kings, they go in for the engage. Again, Colonel's the only one that can really do anything, but it's just so disjointed, it doesn't end up panning out for them. I mean, Sad Best and Brandon just getting kited for days. It's just that Washed Up Kings, they're too weak right now to actually do the damage and win out in these fights when they should be crushing them with how poorly that engage was executed by Colonel.
Yeah, Colonel wanted to get something. He saw the Oxide there, and he wanted to get as much damage on, and he did a decent amount of damage onto Oxide, but at the same time, they were, like you said, there's no follow-up. There's no one to really help engage with him to secure kills for them, and just the kiting coming out on the side of Washed Up Kids was really good on that one. Kept them alive, even though they all got taken pretty low. None of them ended up falling, and now we actually might see the first dragon go over to the side of Rift Kings.
Well, quite honestly, I thought we'd have to wait another 5-10 minutes before Rift Kings would have a solid chance in this game to win out in these fights when they just get too tanky for Washed Up Kids to deal with. But even just sitting at around 2.5 items, Washed Up Kids, they can't cut through Colonel, Brandon, Sad Best. The buffs up from squad are just way too much, and the members of Rift Kings are too tanky. Syndra, unless she's ulting Chucky or Squad, who are positioning very well in these fights, can't really do all that much, and now they just are losing out around the map in these turrets.
Yeah, and now we're going to see the gold lead that they once had really just get diminished. Because we see Colonel in the spot lane, he might be able to get that, actually, the minion wave, having to be called out by Ventus, trying to just cut away at it, but look how low it got taken. Just one more wave might even be able to take that down and swing the gold closer and closer to being nothing.
Yeah, and once again, the macro decision-making from Washed Up Kids, a little bit strange here. They send Ventus down into the bottom lane to deal with this split push, but they need a teleport user. They need Bandicoot down there, or even Van Cleef with the Void Rush could take on a sort of split push role if he has good tunnels around that Baron area. But there's just no one that can deal with Colonel right now. And Washed Up Kids, they know that Bandicoot is a vital part of their team fight, so having him teleport 4.5 seconds too late to a fight might end up costing them the game.
Exactly. So that is a problem when you send Colonel away, is that he's the vital one of the team, that if he's not there for the majority of the fight, then it's not going to look good. But at the same time, we talked about how tanky Rift Kings are getting. At 4.5 seconds, while normally on squishier teams wouldn't be much, it's not going to be that bad for Colonel, because he doesn't have to worry about his team getting cut down quite that fast.
Right, and also Colonel, he thrives. He wants to be the one teleporting in behind enemy lines. Look for that sort of flank initiation. The issue for Rift Kings is that they can't necessarily find the prime fights that they'd want to, but if Colonel can, you know, locate a good ward behind enemy territory, he can make that teleport happen, jump onto either Oxide or Ventus, and really swing fights in Rift King's favor.
So it's, I think one of the problems that we're seeing right, oh my goodness, my voice was not wanting to listen to me.
Not quite as magical as it usually is.
Not quite as magical, but I'll fix that. But the problem I'm seeing right now for Rift Kings is if you look at their warding right now, look how dark the red side jungle is. There's no wards in that red side jungle for them. They have one on the Baron. They have a couple in their own jungle, but at the same time, they don't really have them all over the place. And even for Washed Up Kids, not the best warding. We're not really seeing them get these deep wards that you would like to see for those good teleport plays that Colonel especially would want to use.
Oh, they
trying to get in. Ooh, they burned the flash out of Colonel right there. He's going to try to use the Keeper's Verdict and doesn't actually hit anything except for minions. Van Cleef gets hit into the wall right there. Now they're trying to get the damage onto Chucky, but who is able to kite away, get himself out of there. Now we see the fight going on. Hemoplague hitting on to 4 members right there. There goes Oxide. Colonel taking him down. Colonel's looking for more. He's looking for Ventus. But in the meanwhile, Bandicoot's trying to see what he can do. He does pick up a kill, but so does Ventus. They get Colonel down, but now that is a 3-for-2 trade on that fight right now. What can Rift Kings do?
Rift Kings, they can't really go for any sort of Baron play, but that mid lane outer turret is still available. You saw some pings go down onto that, and that's what they're going to be looking towards this whole game. They've been playing on the back foot. That's why we didn't see the deep vision coming out from them. They know they have the scaling. They just need to play by their base, play to their defenses, and that's exactly what they did right there. Washed Up Kids, they tried to force that turret down, and while it looks like it may have worked out for them, they got the early flash out of Colonel. They got that tower. Eventually, Sad Best and Squad, they came in on that flank and completely skewed that team fight.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Vlad is it doesn't matter how much damage you do. If you do not kill him right away, he's just going to zap that health right back with his transfusion and be completely good to go. He's never going to care.
Yeah, that's one thing that Bandicoot doesn't have over the Vladimir, is that he requires mana, and so in that sense, he can run out of sustain in the long run, whereas Sad Best, there's no sort of resource holding him back. He just is waiting on cooldowns, really, to get that sustain working around, and the teamfight power of Vladimir is just so immense. Getting that Hemoplague to amp up his team's damage on whoever gets afflicted by that is just so powerful, and even down gold Rift Kings, they've got the scaling, and late game has been achieved for these guys. They're sitting at now 3 items working on a 4th, and they're just so monstrous that Washed Up Kids, unless they're finding picks, they can't really do anything. And picks, how do you find picks against all these tanks?
Exactly, and it's gonna be really hard, and I gotta say, really well done on the side of Rift Kings. They're not trying to pressure objectives, and because they can't pressure these. They don't have the CC that they need to. So what they've been doing is they've been just kind of waiting for them to Wash Up Kids to come to them and be like, okay, you're forced to fight us now. We don't need CC because you have to come to us now.
Right. Oh, Bandicoot and Colonel, they're actually duking it out here. Colonel finally getting the upper hand over on that side of the map. Washed Up Kids, they're not done. They know that they have to keep the pedal to the metal. They have to continue pushing in here because if they let up, they give Rift Kings a chance to breathe. The scaling is just going to kick in. Washed Up Kids, they have to force now. And even if they end up losing because they force, they know that they took the chance. They have to go for these plays because late game is not going to be in their favor.
Ooh, right now we do see the engage coming in on the side of Rift Kings. They're trying to see what they can get. Aeon and Ventus hit up by that Hemo play. And look how tanky Brandon is. He flashes in, tries to using Absolute Zero. Doesn't get that much damage though because he's still tanky. But Ventus, he does go down. So does Sad Best. They have cut down the tree. They're going to see if they can't get more. Van Cleef wants to get onto Chucky. He does knock him up. There goes Chucky. Oxide picking up the kill. Now we have the teleports coming in. Actually canceled by Bandicoot. A Colonel still coming in for this one.
Oh.
Double kill going over to the side of Oxide, picking up squad as we see Van Cleef fighting Brandon, but he's going to go down on that one. Colonel securing the kill.
I honestly think the reason that fight went so in the favor of Washed Up Kids is because Colonel was unable to make it into the fight. He's so much more impactful to his team than Bandicoot is. Yes, Bandicoot does a ton of sustained damage, but Colonel is the one who is wreaking havoc on the enemy backline. He's the one picking off Ventus and Oxide, who this fight, Oxide just rolled through Rift Kings. The damage coming out of the triple item Syndra. Now with the Void Staff, just negating any magic resistance that Rift Kings is trying to bring to the table, doing so much and doing exactly what his team needs him to do in order to find a win in these fights.
And that's what's so scary about Syndra is she scales at all points of the game. She never really falls off. She's strong in the early game, mid game, and late game. So even if you're like, oh, we're safe, she can deal so much damage, and we saw right there how that is. She picks up a double kill for herself, really helps her team in that fight, because she did a good job kiting. She was not picked off. She stayed in the back line and just kept tossing ball after ball.
Yeah, it does a ton of damage, especially against these AD carries. Chucky still doesn't have any form of magic resistance. You would have expected to see either a QSS or a Hex Drinker by now just to survive that 100-0. He's putting a lot of faith in squad to keep him alive, and that fight, it was just not the case. Now with two major neutral objectives up, the Baron, the Elder Dragon, these teams, Washed Up Kids, again, they need to continue putting out the pressure. Make a play mid, make a play around that Baron. You've got to keep it up. If you let it go, Rift Kings are going to take this game.
Exactly, and I think that's what they're doing right now. They're pushing up the mid turret, right? Mid minion wave. There we go. They're trying to get that pushed up as best they can. They might rotate top, get that huge minion wave that's building up there. I'd send Bandicoot up there if you can, just to pick that up, keep you scaling well. But right now, they might be just baiting out a Baron.
Oh, Colonel's walking in.
Colonel's walking in, but at the same time, remember how tanky he is. There's Van Cleef. He's going, he hits the double knockup onto Brandon and Sad Best. Brandon getting a full charge of the Absolute Zero. There goes Oxide, the one you want to get out of this one. This is the fight going to go in their favor. Colonel is going in on the benches, but right now, Van Cleef is really low. He's taken down. Double kill going over to Sad Best. Now here goes Bandicoot. Colonel securing the kill on that one. Sad Best, he wants more. He's going for Ventus. He's going for Aeon, but he might be taken down. He is taken down. Aeon with a great hook to make sure he goes down. But now this is the Baron going over to the Rift Kings. The play that they wanted to have on that one. They had a full charge on Brandon's Absolute Zero, and now they have a Baron.
Oh no, they tried for the steal. You just can't do that. Without a smite, it's just hopeless. I mean, granted it's Chucky to pick it up, but Aeon now might just...
Yeah,
I think he's gonna
they weren't worried about it at that point, but the thing is, Colonel is just, he is doing amazing things on that Poppy right now. He makes sure to get the kill on to Ventus, so Ventus can't do anything, and he's just so tanky. We talked about the late game scaling of Rift Heralds. They have Brandon, they have Colonel, they have Sad Best. Sad Best took forever for them to kill. They did get him finally, but it took such a long time that the rest of his team was able to just get everything they needed.
The troubling thing for me is that Washed Up Kids, they don't identify why they won that last team fight. It was because it was a 4 versus 4 where Bandicoot was able to pin Colonel in a side lane, send him back down bottom lane if you're going to make a play on the Baron, Force Colonel to go down there without a teleport, and you can actually win these fights. You are favored in the 4 versus 4s, but now with that Baron, with the potential to pick up an Elder Dragon, this game is getting out of control now for Washed Up Kids. I don't know if they can win a team fight at this point in the game.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult for them. They got to play on Oxide, Oxide and Ventus not getting caught out and just being able to constantly dish out damage without ever getting...
in the pit.
Yeah, look at Colonel. He is just zoning them away. He is the keeper of the gates, not letting them come anywhere near to do anything.
You know, the only thing I would be worried about is, again, Rift Kings can't really engage these fights to force, you know, a game-ending, game-defining team fight. But they're just so strong right now. I feel like they can just walk underneath the turret and knock these things down. They've got the Baron buff on top of the Elder Dragon. 2 massive buffs that are just going to push them in.
Colonel is just not caring that there's a tower there, and he actually went pretty far right there. Pretty much doing what you said. He's just like, I don't care about towers. I'm going to go in anyways and see if I can zone you off, and he did.
Yeah, you just cannot stop this onslaught. Rift Kings, they're finally going to recall. They see 2 gigantic minion waves kind of collapsing on in both the mid and bot. Brandon
flash on that one. There is the teleport coming in from Colonel. Are they going to be able to pick up Brandon before he gets in? Unleash power does secure the kill, but now what do they get from that? We see Colonel trying to get in there as far as he can, while you see Van Cleef and Bandicoot zoning up the rest of his team. Colonel tries the Keeper's Verdict, but he goes down on that one. Oxide picking up the kill. Now they might be able to get more. Bandicoot forced to use his Zonias on that one. Sadbest now trying to see if he can take up as much as he can. Chucky's doing a lot of damage as well. He picks up the kill on to Van Cleef as well. He's looking for more though. Now Van Cleef trying to hit the Grump and gets the triple kill on that one. And Chucky getting the triple kill that he needs to keep his team fight going in their favor.
That was the final straw for Washed Up Kids. They get the pick onto Brandon, but at what cost? They lose almost everything. They blow the Cinder ult. I mean, the kiting out of Oxide, Ventus, and Aeon to stay alive versus Colonel as well, jumping onto the backline. So fantastic for them to stay alive, but they push forward for too much, and Chucky wreaks havoc on Washed Up Kids, destroying them.
Sad Best did so much damage to Oxide, and Bandicoot trying his best to zone off the rest of the team, but Chucky just able to keep him at bay and not even let him get in range to zap health back on that Ravenous Hydra. The range of Caitlyn is just monstrous in these team fights.
Absolutely ridiculous. Chucky, that Elder Dragon buff just doing so much damage. The burn ticks really what turned the fight around. Sad Best.
Ooh. Did they overstay though? That is what they're looking for. Aeon does get the hit onto Sadbest right now. They're trying to see if they can get him. He's Sanguine pulls out right now. But look at Squad. He's taken down. There goes Sadbest as well. Double kill going over to Oxide.
What did I say the potential for Washed Up Kids was to come back in this game? It's pick after pick after pick. You have to continue to do this, and now they have 40 to 50 seconds in a 5 versus 4, but they've lost one 5 versus 3 before. Remember, Chucky, he's still alive, and he is an absolute monster in this game. He doesn't even think that he needs the magic resistance for Oxide because he is just that powerful, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him try and take an undermanned fight here.
Yeah, right now we do see Bandicoot. He teleported in right now. They're trying to see if they can get anything. Colonel using the Keeper's Verdict to hit minions away, trying to keep the tower safe as long as he can. He does get hit by the Never Move, but at the same time, he's fine. There goes the mid inhibitor tower. Probably going to be the mid inhibitor as well, but Squad and Sadbest are about to respawn, so Washed Up Kids, they have to get out.
This all of a sudden becomes a very tense game for the Rift Kings. Yes, they've got the scaling. Yes, they've got the gold. They even got that inhibitor. But if they continue to find themselves in these awkward positions where they're, you know, falling prey to the pit comp that Washed Up Kids have put together, the game could get out of their hands very soon, because if you're down numbers, yes, Chucky can hold on. He's very, very strong, and he's proven that he can win these odd man fights. You can't guarantee that it's going to go in your favor every single time, and when you're up against a Syndra, a Thresh who can hook onto Chucky and burst him out, you have to be increasingly worried about your safety as we progress later and later into this game.
And I just want to quickly shout out Aeon. He has 100% kill participation on his team at the moment. He's doing a really good job at making sure to get these picked on that Thresh, landing the hooks that he needs to keep his team in this game.
Yeah, and I think, especially if we talk about the fight around that blue buff, the one that they lost, but that they got the pick onto Brandon, he was the prime reason why Oxide and Ventus stayed alive for so long. The flays, the hooks, the box, to keep Colonel at bay while his backline was dealing out the damage. He's absolutely been on point this game. From laning phase where he was hooking Chucky all the time. Remember, Chucky was actually underperforming for a majority of this game. Now the roles have kind of swapped and he's taken on this massive late game powerhouse carry in the Caitlyn.
Well, and that's what Caitlyn is. Once she gets up the game, she has all the range, she has all the damage. Look at that. That was a Raptor she pretty much one-shotted right there. And it's just, it gets to the point where you want to get Chucky because he deals so much damage, but at the same time, he always stays so far back and can stay so far back.
Boy.
He doesn't have to worry right now. They're trying the death bush. They're trying to see what they can get. There are 2 traps in that bush too. Again, I love the position. You see Chucky, he's positioned further behind his team. So even if there's a death bush and maybe a bunch of damage comes in from Oxide if he puts a ball there, he's not going to get hit by any of it. That's what you do when you have this kind of comp.
And again, Washed Up Kids, specifically Aeon, he got the vision around that Baron area, so his team knows that they're potentially in their own jungle. They cannot walk in there, otherwise they're going to fall victim to a death brush, fanatic death brush, if you want to call it that. Go back all the way through the past years of League of Legends. But the game is so tense right now. Rift Kings, they know that it could spin on its head with just one sour team fight. And they're not wanting to pull the trigger. The whole game they were playing reactively. Now they finally have the advantage, but they don't want to pull the trigger because they know one misstep could cost them everything.
Exactly, and that's what's kind of interesting right now. Aeon actually caught out a little bit on that one, forced the flash out of that one.
Okay, they got the teleport though. That's actually really important because Bandicoot never had a teleport of his own. This is going to be the game-deciding fight.
Yeah, this is it. Look how fast that's going down, though. The Baron might be gone before Van Cleef gets in. Is he going to try to get the steal right now? We see the Keeper's Verdict.
Oh, no!
He gets Keeper's Verdict out of there. Bandicoot wanted to get in, and he uses Zonia's, but he is locked up. He can't even grab onto the Lantern on that one. He goes down. Brandon secures the Baron, and that could be the game for Rift King.
Oh no, they have a full 60 seconds. Rift Kings, they've got the advantage here. They recall to make sure that they are at full strength before pushing into this base. But even then, there's so much time on the timers. Bandicoot, I feel like he almost flashed into the pit so that he would be the one to eat the Keeper's Verdict to knock himself out of the pit. But Van Cleef fell victim to that one, got smacked around, smacked out, no chance for a steal, which already would have been very, very unlikely versus a Nunu.
Yeah, I think it was also Bandicoot flashed in. I'm pretty sure he flashed Zonia's. So even if so even if he was trying to protect Van Cleef, it was not a very well timed one. And now look at Colonel. He is just tanking up the rest of the members. He's zoning them off, knows that this is a 5v4, and he's so tanky. He has a Guardian's Angel as well. They're going to get one inhibitor, probably going to get the second
5 seconds,
one.
3. Oh, it's close. Bandicoot can come in for a fight. Washed Up Kids, they've already lost everything, but they could decide to fight if they want to.
But look how healthy the side of Rift Kings are right now. It doesn't matter. This tower is probably going to go down. There comes King Colonel right now, trying to see if he can get any damage onto them. Keeper's Verdict's back up right now. He hits out Oxide right now. They might go for more. They hit Bandicoot up into the wall right there, trying to see what they can get. 2-man Hemoblade. Here comes the full channel.
Got him!
Absolutely dangerous. But we get Chucky. He is down. Hey, Oxide has picked up the kill, but at the same time, isn't too late. We see Ventus trying to see what he can do against these very tanky members right now. But look at this. The siege is still coming in. They're going to get this Nexus Tower right now. No, actually, they're not. They're going to pop the Guardian's Angel out of Colonel right now. They're going to see if they can't get more. Colonel's trying to do what he can, but he is too far away from his team who have left him for dead.
What happens now? Washed Up Kids, they're so far behind in this game. They need to go for some sort of push here. There's an open exposed inhibitor in the middle lane. They're definitely going to look for that one, but they also have a minion wave coming in. 30 seconds on Chucky, who got deleted by Oxide. We said he needed more MR. Now he has the Mercurial Scimitar, but even that was not enough. 20 seconds on him, so I think an inhibitor is all that Washed Up Kids can get, but they lost so much for that.
At the same time, look how long Colonel is down for right now.
It's true.
He is one of their main initiators in these fights, but look at also the side of Washed Up Kids. Ventus is very low. Here comes the teleport. Bandicoot trying to see if they can get anything. They want this inhibitor right now. They want the fight. They want to see if they can get more. Bandicoot's trying to get in there. Same with Van Cleef and Aeon. They're trying to get the damage. Here's another absolute zero. Getting good amount of damage onto Oxide right now, who's being zoned away. We see Ventus actually going down in that one as well. He was very low to start that off. Bandicoot's gonna be the next target right now, and Colonel's about to spawn. This could be the game. They overextended on this one. Bandicoot is gonna go down. Here comes the kill onto Oxide. Aeon's the next target. That's a double kill. Van Cleef is the next target. He does have a Guardian's Angel, but here comes Colonel. They're gonna try to get that ace, and they're gonna push down mid to win.
There's no way. There's just not enough time for the washed up kids. Van Cleef gonna get back up, only gonna to get smacked down, smacked over into the wall. Actually might be able to get out of here, but even then, there's just no way to hold on to the game. Rift Kings are flooding into the base. There's nothing standing in their way of the Nexus, but one meek tower. This is
That was the ace right there. Colonel gets it, and at the same time, they didn't even need to get the kill. All they needed to do was stop the back from Van Cleef so that he couldn't stop this push, and that's the game. Rift Kings picking up quite an interesting win on the side of that one. They got the late game that they needed. They got that win condition, and they were able to lock that down.
You know, they achieved late game at what seemed like just 30 minutes into that one, and it was a slow close. Washed up kids definitely put up a fight, kept the pressure up around every turn. Even when they lost an inhibitor, they still found a way to find a pick or two to swing things possibly back in their favor. Traded inhib for inhib, but that Baron was really, I think, the turning point in the game. Van Cleef couldn't get in there for a steal, and they lost 2 inhibitors off that one. That made it just so easy for Rift Kings to flood into the base, and even though they lost the fight there, washed up kids, they knew they had to go for broke down the middle lane, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, and it's kind of disappointing because they had the mid-game power spike on the side of washed up kids, and they didn't play to that win condition. You know, they had these advantages, and they were so afraid to go for it. They're afraid to try to get these high risk, high reward kind of plays that would have been required for them to really get ahead and continue to snowball. Instead, they played too slow. They didn't play quite as methodically as you'd like to see it as well. When you play that slow game, there's mistakes. They got caught out. Bandicoot a little too overextended, which allowed for Rift Kings to get to a late game where, like you said, they're just unstoppable.
Definitely a tense showdown between these two teams. Rift Kings, the ones to finally come out on top, just a little bit over that 50-minute mark. So once again, my name is Enderal. Joining me was Magical Voice, and we're going to take a quick break before we get into our third and final match of the day. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this.